We saw that the Big Ten and Michigan, they're charging ahead. What can you tell us about that and their upcoming schedule?
Well, the most interesting part of that is that Michigan and Ohio State, which is always the weekend of Thanksgiving, it's the end of the regular season. That game has been moved to the end of October. And I'm not joking about it, but it's probably good news for Jim Harbaugh. Now he doesn't end the season with a loss to Ohio State. He gets it out of the way early before Halloween. But it's aggressive by the Big Ten. But what conferences are doing right now, Molly and Max, they're feeding red meat to the fans who call in my program and that ultimately will listen to every other program. I don't know if they're being sincere, but they're just trying to do whatever they're supposed to do right now. But we have still not really hit the bottom line here of whether this season will go on. It looks like it's going to start. And by the way, we're only 3 weeks away from the so-called week 0. I think we'll get there. But once we start playing football games, I think it's anyone's guess whether we'll get to the end of September, the end of October, or certainly to the end of the season.
Paul, all the off-the-field stuff, of course, is swallowing up any other story. There's not a lot of oxygen left for stories. I think partly because there's skepticism. I'm very skeptical that they'll ever finish the season, may not even start it, in fact. But what story, pandemic aside, do you think is kind of most worthy of being out there? Something that could pertain to on the field, a storyline with a coach, a player, a team that you would otherwise be talking about right now were it not for the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it comes down to 2 players in college football. The face of college football this season are 2 quarterbacks. Justin Fields at Ohio State. Remember, he transferred from Georgia. And Trevor Lawrence, who went into last season as the Heisman favorite at Clemson. So you have those 2 stories, and then there's always Alabama. What's going to happen there? I mean, Nick Saban turned 69 here in a couple of weeks, and you have to wonder, he's having a great recruiting class. He's coming off of a terrible season, Max. He lost 2 games last year and destroyed Michigan in a bowl game. So those are the bigger issues. I think as we get closer, I'm following this is back to COVID, the opt-outs. Are we going to see more prominent players opt out as we get closer to the first game? I think we will. They're watching the NFL. And then one more thing that we talked about Monday, and I know you weren't here, that continues to be underneath the surface, and that's what's happening out in the Pac-12. The players in the Pac-12 want to negotiate with the conference commissioner. Will this spread across the country as this chaos reigns? And I suspect that it will.
I just want to wrap this up, Paul. Thank you so much. This whole segment's been enlightening, but the story that you said, and it's not getting enough attention, that Colorado State football coaches are being accused of telling players and staffs not to reveal their COVID-19 symptoms. I just want to remind everyone, we're talking about people's lives at stake, and the after effects of this virus can be absolutely devastating. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I just had to make mention of it again. It's unbelievable. Go ahead, Max.
It's not even about the players, really, who may have the disease. It's about the fact that they then spread it if they're not reporting that they have it. Then they become vectors for the disease. And the whole point of taking the precautions that people are taking is the societal benefit of protecting the elderly and those with underlying conditions, those most vulnerable among us, for whom the disease can be fatal. I mean, it can be fatal even for the not the most vulnerable, but especially for the most vulnerable among us.